Welcome to Hollywood, a town built on nepotism, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, Nepo babies and their influence within the film industry, as we specifically talk about the film The Watchers, directed by Ishana Night Shymalan, which, if you haven't guessed by that name, the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan. This is a film that is produced by M. Night Shyamalan. It is directed and written by his daughter, which obviously brings into the question of Nepo babies. And we're going to be focusing on those ideas today because I think this is a fascinating litmus test for people's critical analysis of said film and maybe some bias that is slipping into some mainstream film criticism. And that's what I want to explore because I don't think there's any way for this film to fully succeed. And those were kind of the three questions that I had on this film today, which is how do you review a film that has this direct of a tie to someone as famous as M. Night Shyamalan is as a director? And that's what we're going to be talking about today in my review of The Watchers. And I always have questions that kind of frame these review videos. The first question that I want to explore is, does Ishana have her father's skills as a filmmaker? Because whatever you want to say about M. Night, there is no question that he obviously has skills as a director. There is a certain level of style and excitement that M. Night is able to elicit, especially in some of his earlier work. And to be honest, films that I think recently have also been able to recapture some of that magic. So that's the fundamental question to this whole discussion of The Watchers. Is Ishana essentially able to replicate her father's success? And with that, I think that ties so nicely into the second question I have about that. Is Ishana's film debut pigeonholed by her connection to her father and his distinct career? Because most film fans have an opinion on M. Night. This isn't like some nobody director or some director we recognize by name, but we can't really think of a style. We kind of use that as a shorthand, like, oh, it's an M. Night movie. You kind of know the twists and turns. You know that there's going to be some third act reveal. You know the structure of an M. Night Shyamalan. So when we're tying this film so directly to the father figure, does that mean we're then putting the expectations that we would on a normal M. Night Shyamalan film now onto his daughter, especially because we know M. Night is producing this film? And if we are, is that even fair to the filmmaker in their feature film debut? But before we go any further, and I have a third question that I'll get back to in a second that I'll spoil in a few moments, but let's just focus on what The Watchers is. The Watchers follows a young artist who gets stranded in an extensive, immaculate forest in Western Ireland, where after finding shelter, she becomes trapped alongside three strangers stalked by mysterious creatures each night, known as The Watchers, in this fairy tale thriller horror film from the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan. This film stars Dakota Fanning as the main character Mina. This stars Georgina Campbell from Barbarian fame as Sierra, and we also have supporting performances from Olwen Fouere as Madeline and Oliver Finnegan as Daniel. These are the four characters that we're largely following in this film. And so with this premise, you already see some similarities to some of M. Night's work. And this is what M. Night does very well in tone. And it's the first thing of praise that I want to give to his daughter, Ishana. And I think what Ishana has been able to capture within The Watchers is she clearly has a sense of atmospheric tension. And I think that can be one that is really hard to do. In this movie, you do feel the elements of this forest, and you do feel like something is ever watching in this film, and it has a creepy aesthetic vibe to it. And the entire time while watching this film, that's what leapt off on the screen. There was just this feeling of being watched. It was this ability to make a huge forest feel both intimate yet ever expanding. And I think that is where she is best utilized as a filmmaker in this, is being able to capture genuine horror in this expansive forest and tell something grounded with these characters within this world and make something genuinely creepy in her world building in that. That was an eye that the director brought to this that I think is unique. I want to give Ishana credit for this because I don't think a lot of young directors nail this right out the gate. And the fact that she clearly has an idea of tension and tone and how to film these scenes and a vision for this is very commendable. And that is the strength of the movie. Now, where the film falls apart is I think the story escapes Ishana here. I think The Watchers has a lot of good ideas as a film, and I think the pacing just gets a little mundane throughout, where you really start feeling the wear and tear of these characters, and you stop being fully invested in this journey. And this is not helped by the fact that I think Dakota Fanning, who is a talented actress, is just simply miscast in this role. She feels so foreign within this film that you think that it's going to lead to something, and it doesn't. And it's just, I've kind of clocked it by the end of the film. It's not that this character is being portrayed like this in a specific way. It's just that I don't think Dakota has any read for this character, and she just doesn't have the lead presence to hold this film together by any means. And it's a really huge travesty for the film, is that the most important character that this film is supposed to follow just isn't compelling in any way and is actually just so hurting the film. I think it is just the case of someone being miscast for this role. Dakota Fanning should not have been the lead of this film, so much so that Georgina Campbell, who stars as Sierra, one of the 4 people locked in this cabin with Mina, I think she would have been far better suited to take this leading role, knowing what she was able to do with Barbarian, having a far more natural chemistry with all of her co-stars in that movie. I think she would have played far better with this tonality that Shyamalan is trying to explore. And that was a huge fundamental issue with The Watchers. But one thing that I also want to talk about, and it goes back to my second question, is her film debut pigeonholed by her association with M. Night Shyamalan. I think it does. And I think it's a little unfair for people to walk into this movie with the M. Night baggage that they have going into this movie, because this movie does advertise itself as an M. Night movie. To be perfectly honest, this movie is probably a better movie if M. Night Shyamalan directed it. And I don't want to take anything away from Ishana, that it's almost unfair to give her this project and to have her this closely associated with this type of storytelling. But it is the criticism that comes with having your father, essentially produce your film and help you get a break. But here's the thing that I really want to focus on, this idea of her being pigeonholed. What was the win for her in this? If this movie is incredibly successful and it is so in line with the M. Night, brand or tonality, then I think a lot of people would kind of unfairly say that M. Night had such a strong influence on this movie. And then for the people who love M. Night and want to be in this world, and that this film is maybe okay versus good, they're going to be more harsh because they're like, well, this is an M. Night. So she gets the unfair comparison of this, where she's M. Night's daughter, and that comes with baggage. And then her association, even if successful, comes with baggage. So she's kind of just stuck in this weird place. And I say this all because I think people have been pretty unfair in their criticism of this movie. And I felt some more sharper criticism from people where I really felt that there was a passionate wanting to tear down this movie specifically because she is the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan, and how dare she kind of step in line and make a movie like this. I kind of do think, and who knows if you can ever prove it or if it can ever actually be quantified, I think if anyone else directed this movie as a new time film director and they didn't have the name Night Shyamalan attached to, their literal name, I think this movie probably has a little bit more buzz and excitement and people being like, oh, this is a genuine talent. But because she's, already kind of established herself as the daughter of M. Night, it kind of gives people ammunition to be a little bit meaner to their criticism of the film. Not saying that's right, not saying that's wrong, not even saying that I am right in my understanding of that. That's kind of just been what I've perceived seeing people talk about this movie, where it just felt like there was a little bit more nastiness coming in this review and some harshness that I feel like is passed up along other directors, which kind of brings me to my third question, which is, should Ishana be taken seriously as a filmmaker, or is she just another Nepo baby? And this is the point that I talked about earlier, where I just think this is such an unfair challenge for her, because I think there is actual genuine talent in this. I think there are a few scenes in this movie, especially as we're in this weird room, where you really do see a capability of a director coming to form, and you see their ability to direct tension really well throughout moments of this scene. And you get this really solid performance out of the actress who plays Madeline, who is the older woman stuck in this room with the other three. You see like genuine understandings of concepts and ideas coming together, even if the story doesn't always work out, even if specifically the third act just kind of goes off the rails, I think is a fair way to say it. You see a lot of actual genuine filmmaking here present within Ishana's talents. And that's what I really want to highlight. Like, there is legitimately great fight scenes. There is real tension in this movie. There are some good performances. Some of the twists work to the benefit of this movie. Others feel like they go on too long. This is a pretty mixed bag as a directorial debut, but it certainly doesn't make me feel that she is this talentless director that just got there solely because of her father's connection. Does her father's connection help her? Certainly. There is no question about that. Is she only her father? Like, no, she's not. Like, she does have a particular style. There are some family traits that run really real in this movie. Specifically, the fact is, like, she has a lot of the same issues her father has, which makes sense. She's learned how to make films from her father. So some of the dialogue issues, some of the directness that this film has are some of the same criticisms I hear people give M. Night all the time. And again, do I need to go as hard as to defend Ishana particularly hard? Like, I get it. Like, she's going to be fine. Like, she comes from a really successful play. The point that I'm trying to make is sometimes I don't understand the anger towards these people working in Hollywood. I just kind of went through a brief list of people that I could think of. Just jotted down a few names of Nepo babies in Hollywood. Let's just start with some of them. Nicolas Cage, Sofia Coppola, George Clooney, Zoe Kravitz, Wyatt Russell, Dan Levy, Miley Cyrus, Dakota Johnson, Angelina Jolie, Jack Quaid, John David Washington, the guys from Please Don't Destroy, Bryce Dallas Howard, Margaret Qualley, Bill Skarsgård, Alexander Skarsgård, Laura Dern, Liza Minnelli, Carrie Fisher, Michael Douglas, Jane Fonda, Ben Stiller, Jamie Lee Curtis, Josh Brolin, Jeff Bridges, and Rashida Jones, just to name some of them. And that is not an extensive list. And yes, for all of those, do you occasionally get someone like Scott Eastwood, Kim Kardashian, Olivia Jade, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Jaden Smith, Ireland Baldwin? Like, yes, you do get those people there with nepotism too. But what I just don't fully understand is some of the nastiness that we're seeing in these debates. Like, should they be allowed in Hollywood? Should they be allowed to make movies? Like, all this stuff. I don't care. Like, really, when it comes down to the idea of nepotism in Hollywood, my simple answer is I really do not care. I guess what I find so hypocritical of this all is we only seem to just now you see it, and you see it all the time on Reddit, specifically gossip sites like fauxmoi. Like, you see it all the time on there, where it's almost like, well, they're a Nepo baby, so their opinion shouldn't matter, or they shouldn't be an actor because they're a Nepo baby. Like, what are we talking about? Like, Hollywood is built on this. And like, yeah, is it maybe unfair? It probably completely is. Is there some ethical issues with nepotism? There certainly are. But the point that I'm trying to make is we're so hypocritical in the way that we view it all, because in reality, if you were just to be down with nepotism in Hollywood, you'd lose a lot of really great films and a lot of great actors that people love. And that's where I kind of want to just focus this conversation of with The Watchers, which is The Watchers is a perfectly suitable first-time feature debut. I legitimately think Ishana has really great sensibilities as a director in certain moments of this film, and other ones require work, as you would expect any first-time director for a feature film to need. But there is legitimate, exciting talent here. And for us to just kind of dismiss it just because her father's M. Night, I don't really understand what we're doing. It almost feels like we are depriving ourselves of someone that could have talent. And yes, is there legitimate issues with this story? Oh my God, the third act falls off a cliff. The movie is overly paced, and I think it's far too slow in the beginning, and I think the final 20 minutes of this film don't really go anywhere interesting. Did I think the second act, though, was pretty enthralling? Yeah, I did. And that's where I just, like I said, some of my reading of this is I'm just like, are you criticizing the movie? Or are you criticizing the existence of a Nepo baby being able to make the movie? And if you want to do that, and if you want to debate that, and you want to talk about the ethics of that, go all ahead. But if you're trying to say that you're objective in your criticism of this movie, but also being fairly mean-spirited towards that, and obviously using it as an opportunity to kind of make your point greater about nepotism and Nepo babies in Hollywood, again, you can do that, but be a little bit more transparent or honest about that. I find it so silly when you read so much, and people, I think it's just kind of the silliness of some of the profession going on right now. And it's not even necessarily with film critics. I always say this is just with how people engage in movies right now. I think it is a little bit of the silliness of how we just talk about movies. I just find the end result to be nothing of actual importance. It doesn't feel like you're actually trying to have a real honest conversation. It's almost like you're virtue signaling. And that's where I find a lot of the discussions around nepotism in Hollywood to be quite frustrating. That's nothing to do with my review. So going back to this, I think The Watchers is a perfectly suitable movie. It's an hour and 40, and I would say of that hour and 40 minutes are pretty compelling. 20 minutes of this film work in favor of the film, and you got about another 30 to 40 minutes that I kind of felt like really lost some momentum in there. But if we went back 5 years later and Ishana makes a really good film, and people are like, well, how'd that happen? It's like, well, actually the skill was there 5 years ago with The Watchers. Like there is clearly some skill making involved with making this movie. So the fact that we're just dismissing it completely out of hand for something that I just honestly find a little silly with how much frustration is being written about this, that's where I feel about The Watchers, where it essentially is, yeah, I think Ishana can make a good film in the future. And this one is, if you want to use baseball metaphors, it's not a home run. It's not even a triple, but maybe she gets on first base. Like maybe she does enough to just prove that, yeah, this is a prospect and this is a talent. And in a few years with some more development, yeah, maybe this could be somebody of significance in this industry. And that's how I felt about The Watchers. I'm giving The Watchers 2.5 out of 5 stars for my review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe.